Chapter 1. The Beginning of Us. Light, like the world itself, was waking up with me. The campus cafe was buzzing with the usual chatter. I still remember the first time I met Bob. It was one of those spring mornings when everything felt. Students typing frantically, cups clinking, the soft hum of an espresso machine. I was sitting by the window, pretending to study, but mostly people watching. That's when he walked in. Tall, confident, and wearing a smile that could melt the frost off the windows. He noticed me right away. I tried to look away, but it was too late. Our eyes had already met. He walked straight to my table and without hesitation asked if he could sit down. Before I could even process what was happening, he'd already ordered 2 cappuccinos. "You look like someone who appreciates good coffee," he said with that crooked grin. It was bold, and I liked it. That was the start of everything. We talked for hours that day, about classes, music, and how both of us hated morning lectures. His laughter was infectious, and the way he looked at me made it feel like I was the only person in that crowded cafe. He had a way of making ordinary things sound extraordinary, of turning a simple conversation into something memorable. A week later, he asked me out properly. We went to the park near the university, walked under cherry blossoms, and shared ice cream like a pair of teenagers in a movie. He told me he wanted to travel the world, to build something meaningful, and somehow I believed every word. 2 months later, we were inseparable. 2 years later, I thought he was my forever. Bob became the center of my world, and everything else faded softly into the background whenever he smiled. We spent nights studying together, mornings making pancakes, and weekends binging old films. He made me laugh when I was stressed and held me when I cried. It wasn't perfect, no relationship is, but I thought it was real. I thought he was real. But love has a way of blinding you. What I didn't see back then were the little cracks forming beneath the surface, the half-truths, the late nights he couldn't explain. The growing distance I kept ignoring because I didn't want to lose him. Is only I'd known then that every perfect moment was a countdown to betrayal. Maybe I would have listened to the unease buried deep inside, that quiet voice whispering that something wasn't right. But I didn't. I kept smiling, kept loving, and kept believing that our story was unbreakable. I didn't realize that the beginning was already the beginning of the end. Chapter 2. Cracks Beneath the Surface. It started with small things. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Everyone gets busy, right? Bob had just started a new project at work, and his hours were unpredictable. That's what he said anyway. But soon, unpredictable became unavailable. He stopped texting me good morning. Our late-night calls turned into short, distracted conversations. He always sounded tired, or worse, distant. When I asked what was wrong, he'd brush it off with a quick, "Just stressed, babe." I wanted to believe him. For months, I did. But then came the canceled dates, the unanswered calls, the last-minute excuses. He'd rush out of our apartment with barely a goodbye, claiming urgent meetings or client emergencies. I noticed he started dressing differently too, sharper, more polished, and when I'd ask who he was meeting, he'd smile faintly and say, "No one special." My gut told me something was wrong, but my heart kept making excuses. I told myself not to be paranoid, not to be that girlfriend, until one night. He came home late, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I remember sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV, my chest tight with unease. "Rough day?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He kissed my forehead and mumbled something about working overtime. When he went to shower, he left his phone on the counter, unlocked. I don't know what possessed me to pick it up. Maybe instinct, maybe desperation. But when I did, my world cracked open. There they were, dozens of messages. Her name was Bethany. The texts weren't ambiguous. Photos, voice notes, inside jokes, pieces of intimacy that had once belonged to me. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Every message I read made it harder to breathe. The worst part wasn't even the cheating itself. It was how natural it all looked. How comfortable. How familiar. He'd told her things he once told me. Called her the same nicknames. Promised her forever, just like he had to me. When he came out of the shower, I was still holding his phone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at him, and in that silence, he knew. His face went pale. "Liza, I can explain." "No," I said, "you can't." That night, I didn't throw him out. I wanted him to sleep knowing I knew. I wanted the guilt to eat him alive before I decided what to do. And trust me, I would do something. Because I wasn't just heartbroken, I was furious. And fury, when mixed with betrayal, is a dangerous thing. Chapter 3, The Plan. For days I lived in silence. I went through the motions, work, classes, calls with my friends, all while something cold and sharp was growing inside me. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was calculation. I didn't want to just leave Bob. I wanted him to feel what he'd done, to lose the control he thought he had. So I began collecting. Every message, every photo, every whispered, "I miss you," that he'd sent her. I saved them all. Screenshots, voice recordings, timestamps. I made folders, organized them like evidence in a trial, because that's what it was going to be, his trial. When he kissed me goodbye in the mornings, I smiled back. I made breakfast, asked about his day, even laughed at his jokes. He thought I was fine, maybe even grateful for his attention again. But in reality, I was counting down the days. His birthday was coming up, and I already knew how I'd celebrate it. The night before, I stayed up until 3, printing everything out. Photos, messages, screenshots. Each one was a nail in the coffin of our relationship. When the day came, I dressed up, calm, composed, almost radiant. He was surprised to see me in such good spirits. "You didn't forget my birthday, did you?" he teased. "Oh, I could never forget," I said, smiling. We went to his favorite cafe, the same one where we'd met 2 years earlier. It almost felt poetic. The place was full, warm light spilling from the hanging lamps, laughter blending with the sound of clinking glasses. He ordered coffee, I ordered wine. I waited for the perfect moment, after the cake, after the gifts, when the mood was lightest. Then, without a word, I slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" he asked, grinning. "Your surprise," I said softly. He opened it. The smile vanished. I watched his hands tremble as he flipped through the pages. Screenshots of his messages with Bethany. Pictures of them together. Her voice notes calling him my love. The room seemed to freeze. A woman at the next table looked over. The waiter stopped mid-step. "Liza, please, not here," he whispered. "Oh, why not?" I said, my voice trembling with controlled rage. "You had no problem doing that in public." His eyes darted around, panicked. People were watching now, really watching, and I didn't care. "You can pack your things when you're done here," I said, standing up. "The apartment's mine, remember? My parents bought it. Consider yourself uninvited." And with that, I walked out. That night, I didn't cry, poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and watched the city lights. Still, something kept bothering me, a name, Bethany. Who was she really? The next morning, curiosity won. I found her social media. Her profile was perfect, the kind that screams, "Everything is fine." But one detail froze me. Her bio read, "Engaged to the love of my life, Bob, engaged." That was when I realized Bob hadn't just cheated. He'd been living a double life. And suddenly, my revenge felt far from over. My mind raced with plans. I couldn't let this go. Not now. Not after everything. I needed to know the truth, to see the full extent of his deception, and maybe I needed someone else to share it with. Someone who had been hurt as deeply as I had. The idea hit me slowly, like a spark. What if there was another? Someone like me, betrayed and furious, who could help me finish what I had started. Chapter 4, The Other Woman. I stared at her profile for almost an hour, rereading every caption, every smiling photo. Engaged to the love of my life. Bob. The words hit like a punch. I felt dizzy, my heart pounding as if it wanted to escape my chest. How could he possibly live like this? How could he look me in the eyes and tell me he loved me while promising another woman forever? At first, I wanted to scream, to message her and tell her everything right there and then. But after a few deep breaths, I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth. So I reached out. I messaged her under the pretense of being an old friend of Bob's who needed to talk about something urgent. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe anger, denial, or silence. Instead, she replied within minutes. We agreed to meet at a small cafe in the city center. I arrived early, clutching my phone like a weapon. When Bethany walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She was beautiful, elegant, polished, confident. The kind of woman who looked like she had everything figured out. "Are you Liza?" she asked, her voice cautious. "Yes," I said. "Please, sit." I didn't waste time. I slid my phone across the table, open on a thread of messages between her and Bob. For a moment, she just stared, blinking rapidly, trying to make sense of it. Then her lips parted and a single word slipped out. "No." She scrolled further, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. He said he loved me," she whispered, tears welling up. "We've been together since high school. 10 years. I froze. 10 years. Suddenly, everything made sense. The distance, the secrecy, the constant lies. Bob hadn't just cheated. He had been building parallel lives, feeding both of us the same promises, the same dreams. Bethany looked up at me, her face pale but fierce. "He told me he was planning to propose next month," she said. My chest tightened. "And maybe we should make sure he remembers that day forever," I replied, my tone steady. She blinked, taken aback, then nodded slowly. "You mean?" "Yes," I said. "He took from both of us. So let's take something from him, his peace." And that's how it began. Two women, once enemies without knowing it, now allies with a shared purpose. We met secretly for weeks, crafting our plan. Bethany had access to his wedding files, guest list, even the event planner's schedule. I had all the evidence. Photos, videos, texts. Together, we created a digital presentation that could destroy him in seconds. Bethany insisted on going through with the wedding, acting as if everything was fine. "He won't suspect a thing," she said, with a bitter smile. "He thinks he's getting away with it, again." I was to be there too, as her bridesmaid. It felt surreal, pretending to support a marriage that we both knew would never happen. The night before the wedding, we sat in her apartment, sipping champagne, our laughter shaky but real. "Do you think this will be enough?" she asked softly. "Oh, it'll be more than enough," I said. "He'll finally understand what it feels like to lose everything." Neither of us slept that night. We didn't need to. We were ready. Every detail had been planned meticulously, every moment calculated to perfection. Our anger had sharpened into focus, and we knew exactly how to hit him where it hurt most, publicly, undeniably, and forever. Chapter 5: The Wedding. The morning of the wedding dawned far too bright, as if the universe itself were mocking what was about to unfold. I stood before the mirror in Bethany's suite, dressed in a pale lavender gown, with my hair pinned in soft, careful curls. I tried to hold a calm face, but my heart was racing in a rhythm I did not control. Bethany appeared behind me in her wedding dress, radiant and untroubled. And for a second, I envied her composure. "You look beautiful," I said, the words soft. "So do you," she whispered, and there was a steady, quiet ferocity in her tone I had not known before. The ceremony was set in a glass-walled hall that overlooked the sea. Flowers hung like clouds, and guests murmured, unaware. He arrived flawless in a suit, smile practiced, pride steady. When his eyes hit mine at Bethany's side, the smile faltered. For an instant, he froze, and that small fault felt like the hinge on which the whole day would swing. Bob's reaction was immediate and raw. He spun, pleading for the screen to be turned off, calling the moment a mistake, calling names like they could reverse the footage. Bethany stepped forward, bouquet, trembling, and spoke with a voice that measured every syllable. "You lied to me," she said, each word clean and clear. The room's hum turned into a chorus of gasps and whispers. Someone dropped a glass. A child began to cry. The officiant froze, hands fumbling with vows that suddenly meant nothing. Bob's pleas ricocheted off the glass. His explanations splintered under the weight of evidence. People scanned one another, drinking in the spectacle like spectators at a sudden, terrible play. The intimacy of our betrayal, once hidden in the private light of phones and late nights, now lay exposed in the middle of a supposed celebration. It felt theatrical and final, like a verdict spoken at the end of a long trial. We walked out together through the hall, while stunned guests whispered and turned their heads, their movements slow, as if in disbelief. The sea wind hit the glass as we passed, bracing and sharp, and for the first time in months I inhaled without the taste of bile. Bethany squeezed my hand and asked quietly, "Do you think we went too far?" The question landed like a stone, but I felt the answer easy and honest. "No." "He did," I replied. Our laughter after that was small and ragged, the kind that comes from shock unspooling into relief. Somewhere behind us, a murmur swelled into debate, opinions forming into the social currency of the day. We stood on the steps for a long time, letting the sea and sky pull at the edges of what had been. In those wide, bright moments outside the glass, the performance of the ceremony collapsed into the simple fact of two women no longer divided by his lies. That night, I went home and did something mundane that felt enormous. I deleted every photo of Bob from my phone. Each image darkened and disappeared, a small ritual of erasure that cleaned a pocket of memory. I poured a glass of wine and sat by my window watching city lights flicker like indifferent constellations. There was no triumphant chorus, only a soft settling of something that had been taut for months. The next morning brought a quiet I had not known for a long time, less like triumph and more like permission to breathe. Calls and messages arrived with questions, condolences, and curious distance. I responded in small human ways and then let silence stretch. Revenge had been a tool and truth the weapon, but walking away felt like the real salvage. In the end, what freed me was not revenge itself, but the simple work of reclaiming space in my life where deception could not stand.